Thank you for joining us today for your Native American Language Program Orientation. We are so excited that you were able to take time out of your Friday to join us again after most of us joined yesterday for the overall orientation. Congratulations again on your new and exciting grant award. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Donna Savis-Burns to kick us off.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. Again, welcome again, and it's glad to have you. I can't even talk. It's Friday. I'm glad to have you here once again. And we look forward to diving into a little deeper into the Native American Language Program and to give you a little bit more on the grant conditions specific to your grant, a little bit more about performance reporting, budget revisions, and just some overall information that we may not have covered yesterday. So we have opportunity for that. We do have questions in the chat box. And so we can take those questions as needed and we'll answer them as we can. But with that, let's get started. Please go to the next slide. Great. And many of you saw this yesterday, but in the event that you have anybody who's new and joining this particular grant presentation, this is our OIE org chart. And at the top is Mr. Julian Guerrero Jr., who is our brand new Indian Ed director. He will hopefully join us towards the end. He's in another meeting at the moment, but he's wonderful. We're so glad to have him on board, and he brings a wonderful vision to our office, and we look forward to working with him as we move forward. And many of you know our formula grant team with Dr. Crystal Moore as the group leader, with Annabelle, Wanda, Marie, and Tawanda. And then of course our discretionary grants, I'm the group leader, and with me is Angela Hernandez Marshall. And just to let you know, we all wear many hats at the moment. And so she is our project officer, program officer for the professional development grant. And she's also your interim program officer for the NAL. We have STEP, the State Tribal Education Partnership Program by Ms. Shala Ortega, who's currently on leave, but will be returning hopefully the end of the month. And then we have the demonstration grants with the program office with Bianca Williams. And we still have 2 vacancies that we are working on filling to complete our family, one in to work with NAL. So most likely you will be having a change in your program officer sometime in the future, but of course we'll let you know that as it happens. Next slide, please. And as I said, this is your interim program officer, Angela Hernandez Marshall, and her program contact and phone number. And again, when we do hire the person on, we will let you know, and it's formally done through G5, which will produce the grant award notification to you. So you will definitely know, and it will be sent to the project director and the authorized representative on the grant. Next slide, please. And with us today, again, we have our wonderful Synergy Enterprise team, who you will see a lot of with the life of your grant, and they will be helping us in all aspects of technical assistance and logistical projects as we move forward. And they were just a newly awarded contract. We're very happy to have them on board with us. And you will see a lot of communication coming from them. And I think I have a couple of slides on their contact information as well. So we welcome Synergy and happy to work with them, and wanted to introduce them to you as well. Next slide. All right, the Native American Language Program. Next slide. Okay, the purpose of this is, of course, to use Native American and Alaska Native languages as the primary language of instruction. We hope that the projects will end up maintaining and protecting and promoting the rights and freedom of Native Americans and Alaska Natives to use, maintain, and revitalize their languages as envisioned in the Native American Languages Act of 1990. They are to support the nation's First Peoples efforts to maintain and revitalize their languages and culture, and also serve to improve all educational opportunities possible and student outcomes within the Native American and Alaska Native communities. Next slide, please. Okay, with that, I will turn it over to Angela Hernandez-Marshall.
Thank you, Donna. Welcome, everybody. It's really great to see some familiar faces. I am not in space. I just have kids more adept at Zoom than me, so forgive me. We have a couple of absolute priorities under which you guys applied and earned grant awards for, so we're really excited. We have two new programs coming out of Navajo Prep and Shoshone Paiute tribes that are supporting brand new programs, language instruction programs. And then for absolute priority 2, really pleased to see a wonderful combination of both our past NAL grantees and some new grantees that are supporting expansion of existing language programs. And we're going to come back to that list in just a minute. Next slide. So again, the first, we had, in addition to the absolute priorities, you might recall, we had some of you apply for some of the additional competitive preference priority points. So there are a number of you out there that did offer and propose to use some of your Title VI funds, either you as the lead entity or one of your consortium partners, to support sustainability using Title VI grant funds in a designated out year. For priority 2, we had Indian applicant preference. And so again, there are a number of you that met that preference as well. Next slide. We have in FY20 from last year, we have 3 of our FY17 cohort and 118 that are continuing through this year. We gave a total of 11 new awards this year for $2.1 million in total. And for year 1, that's funding year 1 of your respective grants. For this year coming up, you can anticipate continuation awards, ideally, for each of your grant projects that have been funded. We do not anticipate any new competitions, rulemaking, or tribal consultation. Just as a reminder, this competition that all of you applied for is only the second for the NAL program, which is really great. And you guys are working from a notice inviting applications that stem from final priorities. So there are final regulations that govern this program that were published right before, or actually in tandem with this notice. Next slide. So if we can go to the next slide, Sarah, I want to just kind of give each of you a chance to stop hearing us and hear from each other. And what I'd like to ask now, if folks can, we're gonna close out the slide deck for just a second, or I don't know if we can make that image smaller. Maybe I'll just call them out, Sarah, if that's easier. And just ask folks to introduce themselves. And in introducing yourselves, I'm going to ask you to introduce the grant project that you're supporting and where you're from, in addition to your name, as well as just noting if you are starting a new program or expanding a program. And then finally, for those of you who were awarded in FY17 and are continuing the work, if you can just note that, because I do want to make sure that as we work together and move forward together, that our new NAL grantees are aware of and get to know and network with our more seasoned grantees. I think it'll certainly help build your capacity faster for implementation purposes. So I'm going to start with Alute. If we have somebody representing that grant.
This is Dylan with the Allied Community of St. Paul Tribal Government. Hi, you cut out there, so I wasn't sure if we got called, but I saw we were first on the list. I work for a community, very small community located in the middle of the Bering Sea. St. Paul Island, Alaska has a pretty amazing history. Our grant is to expand and improve existing programs. So we've had a language grant or language program rather since 2006. It's a very important project, I'm sure, as all language programs for revitalization are. And our project, just in a really basic overview, is to take the existing program, which really relies on more traditional methodology, and encode it into an electronic format. And in doing that, also accredit it into a college campus so that we can kind of build in some sustainability. And then from there, we developed in 2018 a math and coding program that blended elements of the language program. So we're also going to formalize that curriculum and put that into electronic format as well. So that's the very brief overview, but I just want to say thanks for giving us a chance to talk about it, and we're really excited about it.
Thank you, Dylan. Next, I'm going to let anybody who wants to go next, since we don't have the list in front of us.
Angela, do you want me to call them out
Yeah, that would be
alphabetically?
great. That would be great, Sarah. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, then we will have next up Anchorage. Brandon?
Good, I guess, afternoon, everyone. My name is Brandon Locke, and I am the Director of World Language and Immersion Programs for the Anchorage School District in Anchorage, Alaska. We were fortunate to receive a 2017 grant, so we just completed that, year 3, to start our very first Indigenous immersion program in Anchorage, the Yupik language, which is one of 20 official languages in Alaska. Our new grant, we are super excited about and very thankful that we were funded, is to expand our current offerings. So our current grant, or excuse me, our previous grant got us through grade 2. This new grant will get us through grade 5, but the two aspects that are really different this time around are that we are developing and going to be offering a parent engagement workshop series that is appropriate for not only Yupik families and students, but a lot of the various Alaska Native groups that are located in the city of Anchorage. And then also to continue the revitalization work by offering and partnering with the University of Alaska to offer Yupik language courses for adults and family members that are raising the kids that are in the Yupik immersion program. So super excited to have this opportunity, and thankful to the department for this opportunity. I also want to introduce my colleague Katrinka Dabbs is in the group. She is my AA and works for World Languages and ELL programs, and is our financial guru for this project. So thank you and welcome, everyone.
Thanks, Brandon. Next up is Browning Public Schools. I don't believe we have anyone on from there, but if I am wrong, please either unmute or pop in the chat box and let me know. So we will go to St. Paul Public Schools. John?
Bonjour, Ginawa. John Bobolink Indigenous Cause, Kazaga Squad Jamaica and Dunjaba, Maingin and Dodame, St. Paul Indian Education, Indanoke. Good afternoon, everybody. Representing St. Paul Public Schools, we're a large urban district located in Minnesota. I gotta say, I'm pretty proud of all of the work that we're doing towards our education efforts for our Indigenous students in St. Paul. We do have existing programs, pre-K through 12, American Indian Studies, of course, Indian Education Program. We do have pre-K through 8 school, specifically founded to incorporate American Indian content into each classroom. And we do recognize the importance of revitalizing our languages. In St. Paul, we do offer pre-K through 12 2 language tracks, Indigenous language tracks. That's Ojibwe, which you heard me speak as I introduced myself, and Dakota language. And what we applied for with the NAL grant was an effort to really ramp up our Dakota language efforts. Our Ojibwe track seems to be a little bit further ahead, where we do have established a dual credit for senior high students wishing to take Ojibwe. but we're lacking that with our Dakota. And we're recognizing that it's not getting into all of the classrooms. And so with the NAL grant, we see a real opportunity here to ramp that up. And so that's what we're specifically focusing on with the NAL grant, and appreciate being a part of this effort here. Miigwech, everybody.
Thanks, John. Next up are Mescalero Apache schools, and I don't see Rena on. Is there anyone else from Mescalero? All right. If I've missed you, like I said, unmute or pop that in the chat box, but we are going to head over then to the Navajo Preparatory School. Dara?
Hi, everybody. My name is Dara Tabram. I'm the Dean of Student and Community Engagement at Navajo Preparatory School. This is our first time being awarded the NAL grant, so we're really excited to be here. It's really comforting to know that there's so many of you who have already initiated such wonderful projects. So thank you all for sharing a little bit of your details. We're located on the Navajo Nation. We're a tribally controlled a BIE grant school, and we serve students in grades 9 through 12. We're actually the first and only Native American IB World School. So we offer an IB curriculum for our students. We serve students from all over the Navajo Nation. Our buses run 7 hours a day, and we have a residential program as well. And so we're really excited about this opportunity to expand our Diné Bizaad program. We do have language courses available to students, but this grant funding will allow us to create a Diné Bizaad Center, which will allow us to really engage families through oral tradition and storytelling initiatives. So we're really looking at how we can have a greater impact with students, especially with our campus closed down. So we have some interesting modifications that we can use to adapt here in the time of COVID. So thank you all. It's nice to meet you all.
Thanks, Dara. Next up is going to be Oneida Nation. Tracy?
Sugali, Wadek Wanuelado, Gaiga Wanislad, Gasastan Slahawi, Ni Yungats, Poniataga, Ni Wagahunjod, Dahnu, Oneida Language Department Director, Wagadlihun. Hello, everybody. I send greetings and thanksgivings to all of you. I'm coming to you from the Oneida Nation in Wisconsin. We're about 5 miles west of Green Bay, Wisconsin. And we're new to the Native American Languages Program Grant. And we are expecting to expand our fledgling language immersion nest with our award. And we've been slowly strengthening the nest for about 3 years. So with our project, we hope to expand it a couple more grade levels. And also, I think there are 2 of our financial gurus joining us today, Lori and Linda. And our department is situated in the Oneida Nation school system. And so we're all about really strengthening the language programming for the entire school system. And so we're starting here with the little ones, ages 3 through 5, are currently receiving services. Lori or Linda, do you want to chime in on anything? Okay, well, that's about as much as I was going to say. So, Yamako, thank you to everybody.
Thanks, Tracy. All right, next up is Red Cloud Indian School, and I don't see Moira on, but Matthew or anyone else from the team, would you like to do the intro?
So Matthew Ramo Machi Hapi na Wazia Haha Elwati na Ismini Nebraska Mataha na Makpia Luto Waiwa Ekta Wawashi Achamu and Chante Washte na Pechi Yuza Peelo. So my name is Matthew Ramo. I'm the director of curriculum for Red Cloud School. we started a pilot project a couple of years ago where we took 5 kids and started their own track in immersion. Those kids are now in 4th grade. A year ago, Red Cloud decided to go to full immersion as a school, dual immersion, I'm sorry, as a school. So last year was the first kindergarten track. We also have a sister school. It's part of our district. They started kindergarten immersion. So we have kindergarten in 1st grade this year as immersion and kindergarten at the other school as immersion. We wrote this grant to help strengthen our curriculum. We've done a lot of different things in the past, but we want to really to improve and definitely digitize and create the kind of product that will allow us to deliver the kind of things that we want to deliver this year while we're still at home too, while we're doing everything online, and then being able to move forward as we go forward to when they come back to school, that we'll have a really strong program that's it's got curriculum online and things that they can hold. And so that's what we're looking to do with this grant.
Great. Thanks, Matthew. All right, next up is the Shoshone-Paiute tribes of the Duck Valley Indian Reservation. Antoinette?
Zondabini, Ninuene, Shoshone-Paiute, Buhyahuna Naid. Ninadiha, Antoinette Kavanaugh. So good afternoon. My name is Antoinette Kavanaugh. I am from the Shoshone-Paiute tribes from Duck Valley. We're so excited to be a recipient of this grant. It will go a long ways to help us expand our program. We have a fledgling Shoshone, or in our language, we call it Niua language. We have had it in the schools on a real small scale, and we're looking forward to expanding it so that our high school students, we've developed the curriculum already for year 1 Shoshone and year 2 Shoshone, so that it aligns with the international foreign language standards and curriculum for the state of Nevada, as well as the international level, so that our kids can get college or high school credit, which will help them with their college applications, as you well know. This will help us also in year 2 develop the curriculum for the Paiute language, because we have 2 tribes on our reservation, and the languages are not, they're similar because they're both from the Numic language, but they're very different. So we're looking forward to teaching Paiute. We've never had a Paiute class in the school before, so this will be new for us. And then we're hoping by year 3 to have the curriculum fully developed for Paiute with the help of Boise State University, because they've helped to write the Northern Paiute dialect, and then the other university that has worked intensively in crafting instructional programming for the Western Shoshone language dialect is University of Utah. We are on the Idaho-Nevada border. We are very isolated, so there are pros and cons to that, but we have developed these long-term relationships in language development with both Boise State and University of Utah, and we're looking forward to utilizing this grant to solidify those languages in such a way that our students will benefit. So thank you so much for believing in our program and supporting us so that we can move forward.
Thanks, Antoinette. And our next group is Wadukadaning Ojibwe Language Institute. Lisa?
Hi. We are really excited to be expanding our Wadukadaning Ojibwe immersion. We're currently a K through 8, but with this new award, we're going to expand into grades 9 through 12. And we would like our curriculum to be more environmentally project-based for our students, to align with our cultural standards, which will also include professional development for our instructional staff to increase their competency in cultural activities. And we'd also like to continue some of the work that was done in our previous award, which was to create grade level Ojibwe language proficiency assessment. So we would continue to create those for the high school students in grades 9 through 12.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lisa. So our last group is the Yukon Koyukuk School District, but I don't believe anybody from Gina's team is on. If I have missed anyone, please unmute and let me know or pop that in the chat box. We don't want to miss anybody. All right, we'll go ahead and pop back into the presentation. Thank you all for sharing about your exciting projects.
Yes, thank you, Sarah, for walking folks through that. And thank you everybody for sharing. Definitely, as you guys are talking, it really made me smile because I've had a chance to see everybody's applications, and there's really a lot of great work and great thought that have gone into them. Next slide, please. So this is just giving you the bird's eye view. Me up here in space, this is what I see when I look down and see you all spread out throughout the country. Next slide. And you guys will get this slide deck just as you'll get the one that we shared out yesterday. But I thought this is a nice, good reference for you to be able to see the various languages, grade spans, and your fellow grantees by cohort. Next slide. So I'm going to jump back into some of yesterday's conversation and specifically the grant award notification, just to highlight a couple of grant administration items. Next slide. So just as a reminder, in reading through the GAN, if it is something, a document that's new to you, you have what is that we call that budget period, or this year one of your grant project, the performance period being the span of the 3 years for which you're eligible. And then you see the subsequent years and corresponding funding amounts that you have been awarded and approved for. Certainly, I know there are some of you out there that will have award amounts that might look different from what you originally requested. And if that's the case, you will see, I'm going to ask you to go to the next slide, Sarah. You'll see some items that will speak to various attachments, including that attachment 7, where we ask you to revise your budget and resubmit it to us. If you're in that category and you have questions about what you need to do to revise that budget, please feel free to reach out to me and we can have a conversation one-on-one about any details or questions you may have. What I want to delve into now is under block 10 of your respective GANs, and nearly all of you received one or more terms, or what we call grant conditions. These are important because these have time-sensitive action items to which you need to respond. And I just wanted to go over them. Again, not all of these are applicable to everybody on the call, but I just wanted to give a quick overview. Can we go to the next slide? So yesterday, our colleagues from our Office of General Counsel went into vast detail about the indirect cost rate. And some of you have attachment 4, or that indirect cost recovery rate condition. You will have to provide documentation to either evidence a renewed rate, if that's the case, or if it's requesting de minimis, your proposal, a copy of your letter of proposal to your authorizing agency. And again, if you have questions about that process, I'll ask you to reach out to me and we can have a conversation, in addition to any other questions that you might need to get answered from our IDC office. Missing single audit reports. So some of you might have been identified. There is a requirement that if your entity has more than $750,000 in federal funds, you're required to complete a single audit report annually. Some of you, I think, were identified as having missing single audit reports. It's possible those things were delayed or they're not yet recorded in the Federal Audit Clearinghouse. So we ask that you provide those missing reports to us by December 30th, 2020. And then we have a couple of folks that just need signatures for what was an original part of the application, a general requirements section. And again, if you have that condition, I'll ask you to reach out to me and I'll have a one-on-one conversation about exactly what we need from you at that point. And then finally, some of you are quite fortunate in having multiple grants across our OIE discretionary grant program specifically. And if you are one of those grantees, we have asked for you to provide a plan just to ensure that there is no sharing of those funding streams for discrete projects. And so no overlap, no double dipping, quote unquote, if you will, or mixing those funding streams for the wrong projects. Again, we'll ask for that plan. It's really an internal and quality control process description to be due no later than the end of November. So again, these are all time sensitive. November's around the corner already. And I'll just ask that, again, if you have questions about what you need to provide to meet that those conditions and be compliant, please feel free to email me and we can set up a time to talk. Okay, next slide. Thanks, Brandon. So just as a reminder, those grant conditions I just talked through, those would all be listed under terms and conditions in block 10 of your GAN. So you'll see reference to those. If you have a budget reduction, you would have seen an attachment 7. Not necessarily listed in your grant conditions, but in that big laundry list of bedside reading, the attachments that accompany your grant award notification. Okay. So just briefly, I'm not going to go into much detail because we don't have a lot of detail to share now, but we will have an annual project directors meeting. We anticipate being able to have an event that will certainly be in conjunction with our other grant programs. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity to network as well as get some training and professional development in your respective project areas. The date is a TBD. It will be virtual. And we would expect, however, that in future years, ideally, when we can once again meet in person, the notice inviting applications for your grants did indicate for you to set aside funds to send somebody to subsequent project director meetings on an annual basis. So at minimum 1 person. And again, we'll have more details as we move forward. But again, for the most part, the project director who is responsible for the day-to-day management of the grant is the person who's encouraged to attend. Next slide. So our technical assistants right now, they're, as we mentioned at the top, Donna shared and introduced our colleagues, our new colleagues, new to OIE at large, not necessarily new to our pre-existing NAL grantees who I know have worked with Synergy Enterprises in the past. They will be a core part of the work that we do with you, meaning they are our technical assistance arm. And in fact, they're already in the process of beginning the needs assessment work necessary for us to be able to target the kinds of support that we'll be providing to you over the course of your 3 years with this project. That said, you may already see or soon see emails coming from multiple entities or individuals with those suffixes that you see at the bottom of the screen, either seiservices.com or with their partners, AIR.org. So you may see those emails come through and they should all say something to the effect that it's related to NAL ED, the NAL ED grant program. So just be sure to make sure they're in your safe senders list. Communicating with the TA team, they give you some guidance really about what we're hoping to see from you. And that's just because they're serving tens of grantees, and it's much easier to be able to keep track of what it is you need and how to respond and be responsive in a timely manner when you provide this information in your correspondence with them. Next slide. So I'm going to jump to the reporting requirements and turn it over, if I can, to Donna.
Yep, Absolutely. Okay, you will be getting a lot more information forthcoming with any kind of reporting requirements, but we just wanted to give you an overview of what the expectations are. Annual performance reports obviously come once a year, and they're typically due in springtime. We don't have an exact date, but we will give you plenty of time. Usually it's noticed through D5 emails, and so keep an eye on your email for any kind of update. It provides most current performance and expenditure information. So this is a chance for you to kind of take a look at your project as a whole and what you accomplished over that previous year, as well as capturing the financial picture as well. And in order to report to us, there are some requirements and forms that you must use. And that includes these components here for a cover sheet, an executive summary used to kind of give a big picture scenario of how you met your substantial progress. And then you will have specific measures on GEPRA and project objectives and how you've measured meeting those goals. Followed by a budget section. We need to know your current expenditures and drawdowns and make sure that they're communicating with what's in G5, and to monitor to make sure that we don't have carryover if possible at the end. And then of course, section C, which is my personal favorite, any additional information, because you're able to share pictures, I've seen some wonderful little clips of some craft projects or any wonderful thing you like to share with us. We really, really like to see it more than just words on a paper. So if you would like to share that, that's very much welcome in this section as well. Next slide, please. You will be, again, getting more detailed information in the future about your GEPRA reporting, but essentially it's just the measures that you will be reporting based on each year that was highlighted in your notice inviting applications. And you will be determining how well you meet those goals. And you'll be taking a look at the baseline data, which is this prior year from 1920. And then of course, with your first year, the 2021, followed by the second and third year with the corresponding dates and times. And so we will be looking for you to report not just your project goals and objectives that you've outlined in your application, but to meet, of course, the GEPRA measures that we require you to meet. Next slide, please. And here, just a picture of the GEPRA measures in this wonderful graphic. I'm not going to go through every single one, but you can take a look at what is expected here. This should not be anything new, but it highlights those particular measures that we will be looking at in the data collection, which it speaks to. Next slide, please. And then finally, the project objectives. You will also be reporting those, as I mentioned earlier, those that were specifically mentioned in your grant application. That's how your grant application was scored based on those goals and objectives. And so you will be giving us an update on how well you've met those, and using the same format with your GEPRA goals with the baseline data and the corresponding following years with that. Next slide, please. And at that, I don't know if there's any questions about that. Okay, I don't think so. So I'm going to turn it back over to Angela.
Thanks, Donna. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to run through a couple of things. You heard a little bit of this yesterday, but and then talk through something we didn't talk through, and that's contracts at the end of this section. Next slide. So again, as you, to the extent whether you receive budget reductions or not, to the extent you already know that you need to make any budget revisions, this is just a reminder. This is a slide that we shared yesterday. My colleague Sharon from our Office of General Counsel walked through the changes that do need prior approval. For us, frankly, one of the keys here to me, especially at the outset, is that change in key personnel. So a number of you are currently, or just in name only maybe, until you hire somebody, particularly for new programs, or just as you're launching a new segment of your program. I know that I saw a number of folks planning to hire a person in the role of project director. When it's time to change that key personnel, let us know. Don't disappear. Make sure that you're communicating with us and letting us know that that person needs to change. It isn't just important for updating your grant award notification, but until that changes, the person named as the project director continues to be the person receiving any official communication from us. So that's really critical, making sure you make those changes. The change, again, if you make any major changes from direct to contracting of services, equipment costs, travel costs, any of those. And I know in general, frankly, the status quo for most of our grantees, and I would say certainly our previous NAL grantees who are with us today, typically just check in with us, even if they're pretty sure it's right on point. I really do appreciate that they check in and just make sure that there's no issues. So you can go about your day and do what you need to do and not find yourself in a bind if in fact there's something that you needed prior approval for or that isn't allowable for some reason. Next slide. Contracting for services. So one of the things to keep in mind, when you wrote your application, again, a number of you had spoken to having contracted services, either let's say to support curriculum development or maybe for evaluative purposes, for outside activities, professional development activities, whatever the reason. I just want to clarify that and remind folks that us accepting your application isn't approval of those specific entities. The expectation is you are still carrying out your standard procurement processes, meaning full and open competition to compete those services as you would with any other acquisition that you would carry out as part of your entity's rules and regulations would guide you to. They should be consistent with state and local laws, and of course, follow the procedures that are described in the Uniform Grant Guidance. So it should be consistent with federal Uniform Grant Guidance. If you have any questions or concerns about that or see any major changes, again, those are the things that you would be reaching out to me for in the interim. Okay, next slide. And again, if you want to, if you're having trouble going to sleep, or you really need to know an answer to how to, whether something's allowable, allocable, appropriate, you can go to our Uniform Grant Guidance TA site, along with looking at, sorry, can you guys step back? I think you jumped the gun there on the slide. The Uniform Grant Guidance TA site does have, in fact, some really helpful and pretty basic PowerPoint presentations and overviews on rules related to costs and whatnot. To the extent feasible, again, just want to also talk about really this second bullet, which is in your notice inviting applications. And it's about giving Indian preference for training, employment, contracts, et cetera, to the extent appropriate and feasible. So just a reminder about that, that requirement. Next slide. I know, Sarah, you were looking forward to talking about IDC again. I will not be talking about IDC again, but we have plenty of slides to remind you of that when we send it out to you a little later, if not today, I know by Monday. You have this laundry list of resources for how to address indirect cost rates. Going back to those terms and conditions, again, some of you have attachment 4 and a reference to indirect cost rate recovery. So either you have an expired agreement, you didn't provide an agreement, or you have a new agreement or need to get one. And so there's certainly a lot of resources. Next slide, Sarah. You can go and pick on Andre Hilton, our colleague in our indirect cost division office, who can answer lots of questions. But again, if there's something that you feel you'd like to touch base with us first, feel free to email, contact me. Next slide. Budget revision. So we will have an opportunity for those of you who want to, who either have budget reductions or are just interested in understanding more about changes and revisions to budgets, some more of the nitty gritty. And I would encourage you, those of you today who don't really want to be part of the budget fund, but have somebody in your office who is, please, feel free to forward the invite that you will get to that person to join that conversation. And again, it's just a quick overview, but I think it'll help you as you think about mapping and planning your spending moving forward. Next slide. I will stop and just see if there are any questions that anybody has now.
Before we do answer any questions, we do have our director was able to join us, Mr. Julian Guerrero Jr., and he would like to say a few words. So as we're collecting our questions, I'd like to introduce him. Julian.
Yes, thank you, Donna. I appreciate the introduction. And Angela takes good care of all of the grantees, and I'm just so happy and thrilled that the program officers really truly care about the ambitions that you have in your projects. And I wanted to join you guys to signal my support for Native American languages and just share just a quick few pieces of my vision and in relation to how Native languages fit into it. And we're committed to grantee relationships, but the one piece of my vision is OIE visibility, but I could also say Indian education's visibility as a whole. And what better tool to increase visibility than native language? Native languages. There's a really good quote that I constantly refer to, and I don't know where I got it, so I need to attribute better. But I like to say that tribal sovereignty is only as strong as our native languages are. And native languages, it's an easy choice to make, but it's a hard commitment to keep. And your projects, your investments, your time that you're spending on native languages are instrumental to the identity of sovereignty, to the future of native tribes. And I want you to always stay committed to the identity piece of it, because the work that you do, and there's another quote that I do have attribution towards, but it comes from Federico Fellini, and it says, "A different language is a different vision of life." And if we could just kind of manipulate that just slightly, and just imagine the investment that we're giving to native languages, that investment as it trickles down to native identity. This is incredible work, identity work, sovereignty work. And you guys are doing this. You're an extension of the OIE family, and I'm just insurmountably proud of the journeys that you guys are embarking on and continue to work on. And my vision for native languages as a whole is, let's get past colors and actions and numbers. There's a time for that, right? But let's really also focus into a very bold vision. And I'm just so happy that, again, program officers like Angela and Donna and others, and even our Synergy team are supporting your work in this. And we're committed to making sure that our relationship with you is alive and well. And I'm committed to making sure that the vision of native languages does not go unnoticed. So please, I encourage you to join me and join us in the commitment to making sure the visibility of native languages stays. And your projects ensure that. Your success is our success. And again, it's a pleasure to meet you guys virtually. And I look forward to all the amazing stories that we'll get to share in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you very much. And if there are any questions that you still have that you'd like to bring forward, this is the time. Or you think of it later, shoot us an email and we will certainly get you an answer. And this is the same slide that was shared yesterday with our individual program contact information. We are all there, nowhere to hide. So contact us as needed. And to echo what Julian said, is it's wonderful to be able to work with you. And we are here to help. We are here to see you succeed, and look forward to that journey with you.
This is Antoinette Kavanaugh. I was not able to attend the event yesterday. And I was wondering if you are planning on sending out supporting information about what was covered yesterday.
Yes, we will be. I'm not sure the timeline. Sarah, do you have a timeline for that? But absolutely.
Yes, we actually, I believe that information, so we can send it out first thing Monday.
Great.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah. Well, and continue to unmute and ask questions, or if you are more comfortable popping those in the chat box, do so. I am going to launch our end of event poll so that you can fast finger in your answers. While I'm doing that, I'm going to have one of my colleagues pop our more formal feedback survey over into the actual chat box. If you could take 2 minutes to complete that survey, we would greatly appreciate it. It's super helpful as we plan upcoming events. And like I said, it's a 2-minute commitment. It's a super short survey. So we really appreciate you doing that. And then I will also, after this event, be sending out the invitation to that event on the 27th, the budget revision workshop. I'll send it to all of the project directors. You're welcome to then forward that on to whoever. Also, if there are people that you would like me to particularly add to that, you can either, if you have it with you, pop it in the chat box. Otherwise, send an email to oie@seiservices.com. I'm guessing that from this call already that Tracy, you'd probably like me to add Linda and Lori and Brandon, Katrinka, and possibly Matthew. So I can go ahead and add those folks specifically on. And then if there's anyone else, I'll pop that email address over in the chat box as well. So you can just shoot us an email and we can get anyone else from your fiscal team added to that event. It looks like we don't have any further questions here in the chat box. I'm going to stop share so we can see each other as we finish up today. We appreciate you taking time out of your Friday to be with us, and we look forward to an exciting year of projects and learning together. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Enjoy the weekend.
Yes.